Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. Welcome back to those of you who have been watching this series of colour analysis of films. It's been greatly appreciated just how overwhelming the response has been to my little conversations. If you're new to the channel, then you are also mightily welcome. And as you sit through this, if you enjoy it, you might like to subscribe and therefore help the channel to grow a little bit. It's entirely up to you and it's entirely free. The film in question is Ocean's 11, which was released in 2001, but was indeed a remake of an earlier film starring Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and a few other famous faces from the 1960s. The film itself was a major box office hit in 2001. It turned out to be the fifth highest grossing film of that year, and it had a lot of critical acclaim, and rightly so. If you haven't seen it, I certainly suggest that you give it a viewing because it's well worth the drama. It was the first of a trilogy of similar production teams that put together the Ocean's 12 in 2004 and then Ocean's 13 in 2007. I think they were written that way to begin with because this film, Ocean's 11, ends with a bit of a cliffhanger. There was one spin-off with an all-female cast, and that was Ocean's 8. Let's now look at the characters in the order in which they appear. Firstly, let's examine the thieves themselves. Danny Ocean is a professional thief, recently released from jail. Frank Catton is a discredited croupier who also has problems in maintaining a job. He's a con man. Rusty Ryan is Danny Ocean's friend and partner and the second most important person on the team. Then we have Ruben Tishkov, who is the former casino owner who has been wronged by the person who owns the casinos about to be robbed, and he is the money man in this film. Then we have Virgil and Turk Malloy. These are a couple of gifted mechanics and also daredevils. The next to be recruited is Livingston Dell. He's an electronics and surveillance expert, and it's his expertise that allows much of the action to take place. Then we have Basher Tar, who is an explosives expert and also vital to the team. An unusual member with no speaking part whatsoever is the amazing Yen. This man is a professional acrobat, and his role is extremely important to the heist itself. And then we have Saul Bloom, an elderly con man who is able to worm his way into the casino in such a way as to allow explosives to be carried into the vault. And finally, the last recruit is Linus Caldwell. He's Rusty's son, and he's also a pickpocket in his own right, and being the youngest member of the team is also probably the most belligerent. Then we have the two people in the casino that are of importance. There are many other actors, of course, but these two are the ones that we're focusing on. Terry Benedict, he's the owner of the three casinos, and he's also the one who was responsible for Ruben's demise as a casino owner. And then we have Tess Ocean. Tess is Danny's ex-wife, and she's currently Terry Benedict's girlfriend. Let's now move on to the plot. I'm only going to deal with this very briefly because there are many side stories that belong in this plot, and none of them are really relevant to the colour analysis. Firstly, Danny Ocean is released from prison, and he immediately begins a plan which involves the raiding of a casino vault. He recruits Frank, the croupier that he meets, and takes him away from where he is working and sends him off to Las Vegas. He convinces his friend Rusty that the Raid is one that is likely to succeed, and between them, they then convince Reuben to fund the scheme because it will require a good deal of money in order to obtain the riches that they desire. Rusty joins the search for the accomplices and recruits Virgil and Turk, who are at the current time out of work. Then Livingston, who is still working for the government as an electronics surveillance spy. Basha Tar, who is about to be arrested for trying to break into a bank vault of his own. And finally, Saul, the old con man, who wants to remain in retirement but is bored. Danny and Rusty then recruit the amazing Yen, who, although has a successful career in acrobatics, also yearns for more. Danny then finally recruits Linus, who is Rusty's son, as we know, and convinces him that he should partake in the group's activities as well. The group then begins surveillance of the casinos, firstly with Livingston putting surveillance equipment into their electronics vault. Then Frank gets a job at one of the casinos and begins to take notes about the people who are working there. Linus, who is also there to surveil the area, manages to identify Benedict's girlfriend, and Rusty, who recognises her, suspects Danny of having ulterior motives, which almost derail the entire scheme. The team begin working by creating a replica vault and practice the heist. They discuss it and they work their way through what is going to be done by each of the members of the team. Danny can't help himself making contact with his ex-wife Tess, and in the process is identified as a threat by Benedict, who is very suspicious of him. Circumstances begin to threaten to derail the plan altogether, as Basha finds that one of the ideas that they had for entering the vault is now no longer feasible. He brings bad news, and in order to change that bad news into good news, they concoct a plan to raid a science laboratory for a particular piece of equipment known as the pinch. Linus disobeys orders and is almost caught once again, creating a problem for the team. In the process of rescuing Linus, the amazing Yen is injured. Danny then finds that he's been banned from the casino, and adjustments need to be made to some of the roles, and the plan eventually goes into action. The heist begins in earnest with Saul smuggling explosives into the vault. Linus extracts the croupier Frank from the casino by exposing his double life, and in that way Frank is now free to join the rest of the team in their activities. Virgil and Turk smuggle Yen into the vault, and Danny himself becomes a distraction. Benedict is fooled by the outcome of the heist and has to release Danny as being innocent of any involvement. But in the process of talking with Danny, Tess, who is privy to the surveillance of that area, hears that she is being betrayed by Benedict. Danny and Tess reunite, and after Danny is released from jail yet again, they are followed away from the scene by Benedict's goons, which creates the cliffhanger that leads then on to Ocean's 12, another film in the franchise. Now, when I did my PhD studies, one of the things that I looked at were a number of action-adventure films. I also looked at a number of romantic comedies. And romantic comedies, as we all know, are called chick flicks. It's a pejorative term. I decided that we needed a similar term for the action-adventure films that appeal mainly to young men, and I called them dick flicks. Dick flicks have a particular colour palette that goes with their storylines, And we've met some of these in previous films, but I'll go over them again here. The primary characters in Dick flicks are always male, and the plot always involves many different masculine feats. There are bravery in fights, and they outwit their opponents. But they do have a limited colour palette for the characters. Usually the colours involve putting on or taking off various garments in the plot, but nearly all of them are limited to 5 colours as such. The first ones, black, white and grey, are what I listed as achroma in my thesis. These all have interchangeable readings because they are similar. Whereas once black would have stood for the villain and white for the hero, these are no longer in modern films such demarcation sites. Achroma, therefore, is interchangeable. The other 2 colours that are primarily used in Dick flicks are brown and blue. There is a copious amount of brown in this particular film, but not a lot of blue. There are other colours that play a part, and each of these has a specific significance. The hero costumes are generally more colourful than the villain costumes, and villains in Dick flicks generally retain achroma, that is the black, white, grey, as their primary colours. But this film does not follow that rule. The female colours generally are much more colourful, and in that respect, yes, the film does follow that rule, but there is only one main female character, and that is Tess. The colours that she wears are indicative of her changes of mental state. So let's get into it. The first colour of note is black, so we'll analyse it as its role in this film. The first time that we see Danny completely in black is when he's playing cards and is reunited with Rusty. He recruits Rusty in that same costume, and later we see Basher also in black making those explosive gems. Yen, when practicing for the heist, is also wearing black, and Basher, when he is talking about the possibility of obtaining the pinch object, also wears black. The disguise that most of the characters wear for the raid on the Science Institute is, of course, black because it's a night raid. And Yen, when he is inside the vault, also continues to wear black. It is the disguise adopted by the characters as they take on the SWAT team roles. And for Tess, she wears black when she meets Danny for the second time at dinner. The costumes worn by the team for their fake heist is also black. And when Turk remotely decoys a van that fools Benedict's surveillance team, he's also wearing black. And finally, Yen remains in his black costume for their victory farewell appearance. In each of these cases, black suggests that there is control of a situation and also hidden agendas, some of which are kept from the audience of the film itself. White mainly appears as an adjunct to black, and more often than not, it is seen with black, and we'll be looking at that in a moment. But on Rusty's first visit to see Reuben and convince him to be the money man, he is wearing a white suit. Yen's public performance is in white, as is the shirt worn by Danny when they're setting up the surveillance of the casinos. When he's building the vault, Danny is also wearing that white shirt, and he's still in the same shirt when he discovers that he has been red flagged and is no longer welcome in the casinos. As Tess prepares for dinner with Benedict, she's also wearing a white outfit, and Virgil and Turk, in their role as waiters, are also wearing white uniforms as they deliver Yen into the casino. We see those same uniforms later on discarded in a lift. White in these situations is all about the mastery or display of a skill, whether that be one that is evident or one that is caused or challenged by practicalities and realities that emerge unexpectedly. When black and white appear together, they merge those two meanings. So the first sign we have of black and white together is when Danny is about to leave jail. Here he has collected his wedding ring and the suit in which he was arrested, and immediately we see through his thoughtful expression that he is hatching a plan. When he chairs the meeting of all of the co-conspirators, he's wearing black and white again. And Benedict, for the first time that we meet him, is wearing black and white as he greets the high rollers and tours his casinos. When Saul contacts Benedict the first time, he also is wearing black and white. And when Danny hears Bash's news about a failed idea, again, there is black and white as the costume. Danny, leading the science raid, is the only person who's wearing white along with black as his costume. And afterwards, when they discuss with Rusty the outcome of that raid, he continues in that black and white. In fact, it becomes more evident. When Benedict receives Saul's briefcase, he's wearing black and white, and we find Yen preparing for his part in the raid by bandaging up his now damaged hand. When Danny returns to the casino, he is accosted by Benedict's goons, and again wearing black and white. When he joins Linus, he's still wearing that same costume, and when they enter the lift, he has removed his black jacket, and both of them are wearing black and white. Benedict, watching the prize fight, is in black and white, and when he calls the SWAT team later on in the same costume, he retains the black with a minimal amount of white. Reuben, watching the remote control van being raided by Benedict's goons, is wearing black and white. And when Danny exposes the raid to Benedict, he's also wearing black and white. And you'll notice a little tiny amount of red on his collar, which has some minor significance, but appears so briefly it's barely worth noting. Reuben at the farewell retains his black and white formal attire. And when Danny leaves jail for the second time, again, we see him in black and white. Black and white together tend to indicate a distraction of some sort is taking place. There is reality, but that is counterbalanced by some ulterior motives, thereby combining both the black and the white readings. The next most common colour that appears is, of course, grey. We first see Rusty giving a class to people on how to play cards, and he's wearing a grey shirt and tie. When Danny and Rusty recruit Reuben, it is Danny who is wearing the grey. Yen, meditating before the meeting that decides who will play what part in the heist, is wearing grey. Linus also has a certain amount of grey, although this is an odd grey, and even though there is some brown in his costume, the entire effect is one of greyness. He's hanging back at the meeting. Rusty at the vault construction is wearing a blue-grey shirt, and Saul, when he's all suited up to make an impression on Benedict, is given a grey suit. Linus, as the inspector that outs Frank's situation as a fake croupier, is wearing grey. And at the farewell, Linus wears the same grey outfit he wore at the first meeting. When Rusty collects Danny from jail, he's also wearing a certain amount of grey. Now, grey in all of these situations is a preparation for some sort of activity. It's also managing a fair degree of boredom. Are these people waiting for something to happen? And that seems to be the case. Brown is also a major colour in this film for their costumes, but brown appears in two different levels. There is brown proper, as we would recognise it, and there's also a grey brown known as beige. Let's look at the brown proper first. When Danny is recruiting Frank, he's wearing two different shades of brown. Linus's reconnaissance of the casino is also in brown. And when Basher goes underground to try and set up some explosives, he's also wearing brown. Linus, helping with the replica vault build, is in brown. And when he is in the crowd surveilling Danny at his father's request, he's also in brown. Basher, coming back from his underground surveillance, is covered in brown goo and is the bearer of some bad news. Brown appears to be everyman attire. It's the sort of clothing designed to distract attention because it is so commonplace. Beige, on the other hand, is a brownish grey that has a different reading to brown proper. When Rusty recruits Saul, he's wearing that beige, as too is Saul. When Rusty contemplates hiring one more person for the team, he's wearing a beige and white striped shirt. And Livingston, as he infiltrates the electronics section of the casino, is in a beige coloured work outfit. When Benedict first arrives at the casino, we don't actually meet him, but we do see him enter it wearing a beige outfit. At the demolition site, he's wearing a similar outfit, this time with a large coat, and Tess, who accompanies him, is in a similar coloured outfit. Because Benedict has been distracted now by the information about the heist in progress, Tess returns alone to her rooms at the casino wearing beige. And having taken her jacket off, she hears the betrayal of Benedict of her. Beige is all about self-assurance, but it's also determined action. There is something about the way in which these people carry out their activities that makes them almost invisible, because the beige colour does not attract attention. Now, browns appear with black as well, and that has a slightly different connotation, because now we're taking the everyman of the brown and we're adding it to the deception of black. When Frank accepts the offer made by Danny at the first casino, he's wearing black and brown. When Danny decides he's going to choose Yen as part of the team, he also is in black and brown. And when he recruits Linus, it's the same colour combination. Livingston, busy hacking and controlling the electronics at the casino, is also in those colours. Here we have, in each case, an uncertainty about the expected results, but a determination to proceed all the same. When brown appears with white, the reading again alters slightly. Danny at the parole board is wearing brown and white. When Rusty rescues Bashar from his arrest, he's also wearing brown and white. Saul at the racecourse has that beigey brown and white outfit, along with some other colours which are not of great relevance to the storyline. Virgil, checking out the casino, is wearing brown and white checked shirt. And when Turk comes in with his balloons as a distraction to the casino operators, he is wearing a brown hat and a white tee. And finally, we see Rusty disguised as a doctor, again in brown and white. Here we have a facade of determination. These people know what they are doing. They are giving the impression that they are comfortable in what they are doing, but at the same time, there are hidden values that are not being expressed, and their entire garb is designed to fool the people with whom they are interacting. There are other colours as well that have very specific but limited use within the film, and one of those colours is red. Virgil and Turk are first seen in red jackets. That is their racing uniform. Linus is wearing a red hat when he is busy being a pickpocket. Reuben, when he hosts the meeting that brings the team together, is wearing a red jacket. And Frank's casino uniform working for Benedict is also primarily red. Tess makes her grand entrance as the woman in red, and when Benedict is viewing the artworks that Tess has arranged for him, he is wearing a red jumper underneath his white jacket. We see Saul with pre-heist jitters wearing a red vest, and when Virgil and Turk discard the white waiter uniforms, they put on the red uniforms of the money guards. And finally, as Basher activates the pinch, he's wearing a red jacket. Now, red, as in all films, attracts attention. It promotes visibility of a sort, but it also suggests dominance in a situation. No one is going to attempt to prevent the people wearing red from doing what they are doing, because visually they're saying, I know what I'm doing and I'm in charge. Coming back to one of the Dick Flick colours, we have blue, which is not as prominent as the other colours of the genre, but nevertheless has some significance. When Rusty visits Reuben, along with Danny, he's wearing a blue shirt underneath his white suit. Linus on the train has a blue jacket. And when we see Livingston inside the electronics hub of the casino, he is in a blue light, which has importance as an ambience colour. When Saul first meets Benedict, he's wearing a blue shirt under that grey suit. Rusty, on recognising Tess as the woman of Benedict's interest, is also wearing a blue shirt. Saul's stress reaction is accompanied with a blue shirt, and when Saul is suffering his heart attack, he's also wearing a blue shirt. Now, blue in these situations is all about silent background action. None of the characters wearing blue are indicating any form of verbal outburst. None of them are particularly involved in interacting. Orange is another colour of note. We see orange in the original uniform worn by Frank in the casino where he meets Danny. And again, he's wearing a bright orange shirt when he's heading for Las Vegas. Livingston's cap is a muted orange when he is working for the surveillance team. And Frank, at the meeting of the various different team members, is wearing orange-coloured trousers. Of particular note of the use of orange is the colour of the balloons that are used to block the view of the camera. So orange in this respect is all about unexpected action, unexpected potentials. Yellow appears even less frequently, but is of some note. Yellow is a colour primarily associated with Frank. He's heading for Las Vegas in his yellow jacket, but Danny also wears a yellow shirt when he is dressing Saul for the big meeting with Dominic. Frank, watching Livingston at work, is wearing that same yellow jacket. And at the farewell, we see him again, finally, with the same jacket as they all contemplate a life of luxury to come. Yellow, therefore, is an anticipation of some form of success, is all about anticipatory joy. The only other colour of note in the film is pink. Pink adheres only once and to the character Tess. As she's waiting for Danny to be released from jail the second time, she is showing in her pink garb that she has rekindled her love for him and now will remain with him. There are other colours that appear, but they have a minimalist or glancing view only. Green we see as a flash occasionally. Purple comes in once or twice as a tie. Cyan doesn't appear at all. They're all incidental to the plot, and they occur in multi-hued costumes. There is insufficient presentation of any of these three colours for any form of analysis, so we'll just simply leave them out. So let's now summarise. Black is all about control and hidden motives. White is about mastery and responding to reality. Grey is waiting for things to happen. Brown is the everyman, but not very memorable, whereas beige is self-assurance, but still not very memorable. Red is all about high visibility and competence. Blue is about low visibility and competence. Orange involves unexpected distractions. Yellow, an expectancy of good things to come. And pink, finally, is love. So there we have it. Film Ocean's 11, a colour analysis. I hope you've enjoyed this particular session. It was a fairly exciting film, and I certainly wasn't able to foresee a lot of the twists of the plot, unlike many films where the minute the character appears in a colour, I can pretty well tell you what's going to happen next. Doesn't work for this film completely. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, once again, please go ahead, have a look. I'm rather looking forward to watching the other two films in the franchise. Anyway, until next time, I certainly wish you a great deal of joy and happiness in the colours that you decide to put into your life. And until then, good luck. Bye.